And then Gnampah, I mean, tell me a bit more about the projects you're currently in.
Okay.
It would be interesting to know.
Yes, so we've got a project running in Northwestern Province. And we have actually got in partnership with the Chiefdom of the area.
Whereabouts is this?
This is Zambezi.
Zambezi, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so what we did was we had lengthy dialogue discussions with the royal establishment and the chief himself to say we have a proposal that we'd like to share, which is facilitating investment to your area. Because one of his major cries was, we've been left behind. And looking at the distance from the main Lusaka or even the Copper Belt,
it's far.
Pretty far off,
Yeah.
and they've been neglected, and he's a very passionate man about development. So we got talking and we came up with a concept that would actually facilitate investment to the area. And so what we did was we came up with a proposal which was then passed on to his royal establishment, which is the Prime Minister's, his advisors, some family members, and the headman.
So the chief actually has prime ministers as
Yes,
well.
it's-
Interesting.
It's a government on its own.
Okay.
Yes, that deliberates all issues in the chiefdom, from sensitization, advisory, making decisions, to cultural, traditional ceremonies. I mean, they have a court there,
Yeah.
and so it's a government that's well structured, and everything is probably replicated from what we have here as a modern society.
So one would actually think that the chiefdom is a ceremonial position, but from what I hear from you, it's actually very much a full-time job.
Yes, it is a full-time job.
Hmm.
It is a full-time job actually, because whatever issues are raised go through him, and he's the final authority in everything that he does.
Have you also witnessed any of these traditional ceremonies, or are you yet to?
Yes, I have been to about 2 traditional ceremonies, and well, pretty interesting. And from past projects as well, we have interacted with certain chiefs, and we've seen how the processes of actually reaching them, actually having one-on-one discussions with them, what steps are to be followed and how you approach and the likes.
Okay.
So, yeah. And so, just to head back to the project. So, we've got into a Memorandum of Understanding. And this is just to actually outline the vision of the project, which is we bring investors to the area. At the same time, the investors creating jobs for the people in those areas. And the shift or the trickle-down system will be probably the area opening up through probably infrastructure, more jobs created, schools being built, hospitals, churches, and basically there will be a shift in the livelihood of the people once these investors are being able to access areas where they would like to do developmental projects.
Okay.
Yes.
And how long did this process take you with Northwestern Province? From start of talking to the chiefs to where you are now.
Well, it's been over almost a year now.
Okay.
Of interaction, going back and forth on how best to engage and what our expectations are, what their expectations are, and how we could also safeguard the investors' investments as well.
And how much land has the chiefdom given to you to develop?
Well,
Or is that still still being discussed?
well, we have. It's pretty much it's a substantial amount of land.
Substantial amount.
Yes,
You won't say more than
I won't say more than that.
Okay.
It's actually enough land to kickstart something else because we don't want to go too big. We would like to do it in phases.
Oh yes, Zambia speaks more than 78 languages. What do they speak in Zambezi?
Yeah, that's the Lunda.
Lunda.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the Lunda tribe.
And Nuvales as well, right?
Well, the area that we are in is in Zambezi East.
Okay.
That's where you find the Lundas. And in Zambezi West is where you find the Nuvales.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to know.
Good.
So tell us a bit how that process went. I mean, talking to a chief is not your normal way of communicating. There's processes involved.
That's true. Well, many people ask that question, like, how did you manage to get that? Well, I think we were determined to get across our message to them. And he's also determined to develop his area. So I think it's two personalities that met and the universes had to make it work. That's the only thing I could say.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's not an everyday thing that you'd actually have access to such high authority.
Yeah, how do you approach a chief?
Well, there's different tribes have different ways of approaching the chief. There's others who actually crawl to actually meet the chief. There are others who actually kneel down. And there's different gestures on how you actually do it, but you're always instructed.
So how did you have to talk to this chief?
Well, we had to be instructed by his what we call his personal advisor in English.
Okay. Did you crawl? Did you kneel?
No, we knelt and we did the whole
like this, right?
bow of one knee, and we actually told how many times you should clap.
How many times was that? 3?
3 times, and yes, the whole.
And for women it's like this, or is
something like that.
Yeah.
There's
Interesting.
the feminine and masculine one.
Yeah. It's interesting because the Shonas, for them it's the other way around. For them, females clap like this and men do like this.
Ah, okay.
So there's some nuances there. But
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. So he's actually the chief is a teacher by profession.
Okay.
So he's very well educated and he understands development goals. And when you have a person like that in authority and he's seen what the potential of his area has, there is no way in his right mind he would let his people the same. This is why he's opened up with his whole heart and said, let's work at this and let's deliver what we've actually set our minds to. And so he himself is involved 100% committed.
Mm-hmm.
If every investor wants to meet him, his doors are open. Well, we are just facilitating for that because he can't do everything. So we are basically his agents.
You're an extension of...
Yes, we're extension. We're his face when it comes to the business point of view until they reach the areas where he will also do his part by probably embracing whoever comes on board.
Okay.
But in terms of paperwork, in terms of all necessary documents for your facilitation to access the land, we handle that.
Okay. And what are the criteria that investors have to meet to be able to invest in the project that you have set up?
Well, the first thing is the investor's dedication to develop the area that he's going to settle in.
Okay.
we cannot have a situation where we have people coming into the area to just hoard the land and probably do nothing on it, and later on when they obtain titles, they sell it off for exorbitant amounts. What we're looking for is something that is sustainable. Sustainable development is the key word here. So when investors come in, they're coming in and they're coming to stay. When they put up the structures, it's structures that will actually benefit everyone else, but not just them.
And do you also target a specific group of people? Is it foreign investors mostly, or indigenous Zambians? Do you try and get a mix? How do you try and do that?
What we're trying to do is open up mainly for people that have got the passion to develop something. Because we all know that there's certain Zambian businessmen that could actually change these areas. But the thing is, probably they don't even know how to get access to some of these areas. So that's what we are doing. So it's open to local Zambians. It's open to foreign investors as well. We're trying to have a community that all people from different businesses and walks of life are there to just put up their investments, do their projects, make their money, and also have a trickle-down system to the community that will also benefit everyone else, including the chiefdoms.
So you're trying to get a mix?
It's a mix. It's a mix. So we'll probably deem it as some kind of economic facility zone.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
The youth of Zambia, if you try and entice them to invest in this project, why would they do that as opposed to finding land closer to the copper belt or Lusaka, what they used to doing? Why should they instead go to a rural area like you mentioned, or like you're working on? What are the advantages of that?
The advantages are that you have your own substantial piece of land at a very low rate to start with.
250 hectares.
250 hectares is some substantial amount.
Because it's a one-size-fits-all, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And probably many of them won't even finish that land in their lifetimes. So it's something that can be passed on from generation to the other.
Okay.
And in itself, that is wealth actually. It's the easiest way to actually gain something that will actually be passed on from one generation to the other. And another thing also is like what the first Republican president used to advise the youth back then.
Kenneth Kaunda.
Yeah, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda was go back to the land. And going back to the land is only being realized now. Because everything starts with the land. Be it infrastructure, agriculture, tourism, you all have to have access to land for you to actually generate an income. So them going back to the land is also another way of saying, can you go back and start up your own businesses? Go into agriculture if you have to. And in fact, that's the next big thing in Zambia. If we could actually just all go back and just till the land and make food more affordable for everyone, and I think the more affordable food is, the more production and the more vibrant a society can become. Because at least everyone has got a filled tummy and is able to actually think positively to actually push on to the next level. So going back to land for the youth is actually something they should do today, because what happens, or what is actually happening, not only here in Zambia but elsewhere, is many of the people that are actually getting these huge portions of land are probably the people from outside. And when you go to these rural areas, you find different races, and what they're doing you don't even know. And by the time you check in records at the Ministry of Lands and other departments, you find a conglomerate of businessmen or these big firms are owning half the area.
Yeah.
And by the time you're grown and retiring, you have nowhere to settle. So I think it's a wake-up call for everyone to just think of tomorrow by owning something for themselves.
Yeah. And then getting back to the issue of displacement, you just mentioned conglomerates coming into rural areas, buying up a lot of land. A lot of these people, or a lot of our people, are living in rural areas. Maybe not as many as in the cities, but they're there. How does Gnampah work to make sure that this doesn't happen in the Northwestern Province project, for example?
Yes. So we've made sure we are engaged with all stakeholders that actually help with the facilitation of the land allocations. So we've got the first, which is the chief himself, the royal establishment, which is his prime ministers and his headmen, who actually are spread out all over his kingdom, and who actually know which parcels of land are available and which are not, where each and every family is, and all these are actually on record. And then we also have the other stakeholder, which is the district council, which is a government department that actually foresees what goes on within the districts where the chiefdoms actually fall in.
Okay.
So the district council is also a very important key player in the project, because they will actually advise on what areas are open for such developmental projects.
So you've made sure that you're as far away from civilization as possible?
Yes, we've made sure that no family is going to be encroached on.
Okay.
And that's with the help of the district council, because they are the ones that do the city plannings or the district plannings for these things. So they know where the last settlements are, where the game reserves are, where the forest reserves are, and where it's open for developmental projects like the one we're doing.
This is also coming from the same projects you mentioned that the government has set up to document where customary land is and where not.
Yes, they've also got these other, more like NGOs that help register customary land in rural areas for documentation purposes.
And just again, a recap, I'm not sure if we mentioned this before already, but the difference between customary land and land on title is that customary land can be passed on, or even title deeds can be passed on, but customary land is forever in
Yes.
your property,
Yes.
whereas title deeds is something that banks are more willing to work with. However, this is land that is leased by the state
Yes.
to the people
Yes.
for 99 years max.
So with customary land, the overseer or the custodian is the chief. And whatever parcel is on customary land, be it for a clan or a family, is theirs. But it's just not been documented by the state.
Okay.
So there's two governing bodies on the land policies here. There's the state policy and there's the customary policy. The state policy is obviously guided by the statutory instrument of the government, and the customary is governed by the chief.
Okay.
But all land is land, but it's just probably the silver lining is documentation.
Okay, clear.
Yeah.